Some say the future of the Earth's climate is being decided for you this week in Indonesia. 10,000 delegates and a lot of finger pointing. Next on Global Pulse, a comparison of how broadcasters worldwide are covering this story. It's the 10th anniversary of the Kyoto Protocol, an agreement adopted in 1997 mandating at least 5% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by all developed countries. 139 countries agreed to the restrictions, but guess who didn't? For this anniversary, a 10-day UN conference in Bali, Indonesia. France's TV5 sets the stage.
10,000 delegates gathered together and have 2 weeks to agree on a new protocol to combat global warming. The Kyoto Agreement, signed in 1997, will expire in 5 years. Its object still hasn't been reached.
The message
was received by the new Australian government that chose to open the conference announcing their ratification of the famous Kyoto Protocol, a decision immediately welcomed by the Assembly. The U.S., which consumes 1/4 of the oil on the planet, is now the only developed nation that hasn't joined the club. Everyone is pointing fingers at the U.S. along with the 2 other biggest polluters on the planet, China and India.
China's Asia Today and CCTV were quick to point a finger back, mostly accusing the U.S. of not signing the agreement and being the largest CO2 polluter.
A key goal of the 2-week conference will be to draw skeptical U.S. into an agreement to cut emissions of carbon dioxide and other so-called greenhouse gases. Washington remains opposed to steps many other countries support, such as mandatory emissions cuts and a target for limiting the rise in global temperatures. The move leaves the U.S., the world's top emitter of greenhouse gases, as the sole industrial power not to sign the agreement.
We certainly respect Australia's decision. President Bush made that very clear, that it was up to each country to decide how to move forward.
Washington has argued that mandatory cuts in emissions would harm the economy and has questioned the veracity of global warming science. While Australia's announcement was certainly seen as a significant step, analysts doubt the U.S. will follow suit.
I think the role of the United States in these negotiations is critical. The United States decided not to ratify the Kyoto Protocol. The United States is today still the largest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world.
Japan's NHK News was quick to remind viewers of China's growing appetite for energy and how close the country is to surpassing the U.S. in CO2 emissions.
Chinese carbon dioxide emissions are 18% of the world's total. China is soon predicted to surpass the United States as largest producer. But China is consistently refusing to take responsibility for its emissions. At the Bali meeting, China conveyed its position that America, which has not even ratified the Kyoto Protocol, should take responsibility for its emissions first.
We are very reluctant to say that there should be a new framework, but rather to strengthening the current commitments.
The BBC decided to show a different way to calculate CO2 emissions.
First, the world as we know it. Next, the world measured in terms of carbon emissions per country. That's the current UN system. Look at the USA and China. Huge. Now watch this. The world of carbon emissions per capita. That's the way some environmentalists say carbon should be measured. That great yellow blob leaping out of the screen is the Gulf states. Their emissions per person so massive that by comparison, the USA appears to have gone on a carbon diet.
As the conference continues on, and the world collectively points its finger at the United States as the largest polluter, it's interesting to note U.S. news networks provided little coverage of the Bali conference. NBC News chose to mention it only after reporting on the plight of penguins.
They are charismatic, endearing, and in serious trouble. Antarctica, the penguins' home for more than 60 million years, the coldest place on Earth, is warming and threatening the birds' very survival. So it's no coincidence that this report comes out as over 180 nations meet in Bali to discuss how to reduce carbon dioxide pollution, hoping the plight of these creatures all dressed up will ensure they still have some place to go.
This is Erin Coker for Global Pulse.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only US network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.